What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Rawstocks. This is the weekend edition, and we are going to look at Tesla's chart. We're going to look at where price came from last week, where price ended on Friday, and where price is likely to head tomorrow. So let's go ahead and jump into it. But before I do that, don't forget to smash a like, subscribe, send it to all your friends. Help us hit our subscriber numbers. We got that contest going on where we're giving away free Rawstocks merchandise when we get to 500, 1,000, and 5,000 subscribers. Also got a link to the Discord in the description below where I'm hanging out during market hours with traders helping traders. And there's some other things like my socials and other ways you can help support the channel. So looking at Tesla's chart, and we're looking at where price went during the week. We had earnings. It was a miss. Price sold off. Where did it sell off to? To liquidity, right? To equal lows, wick, relative equal lows, previous low, and price delivered right to it. Just a little bit down through it, but ended on Friday at the low of the wick. So important to note that. Rapid sell-off. Take a look at the RSI. We got an oversold reading. So as we go into next week, we're looking to see if price wants to continue to deliver to the downside, or if we're going to see a bounce before we have that continuation to the downside. So when we're looking at some of our different things, we got on the daily chart, we have a fair value gap that we have not gotten back down to, but it's right below 200, down into the 190 range. We know that that's magnetic. We know price is likely delivering to that fair value gap. If it goes lower, then great, but that's our target, into that fair value gap where we know buyers should be stepping in, somewhere around there. We also have our lower order block, which is a swing order block, and we could see price trade all the way down to 160. So we'll just have to wait and see if that happens. But that's not here or there. First, we got this daily fair value gap where we're targeting. So we'll see what happens with that. We do see that through last week, we traded down through our previous month low. We gapped it, right? Tesla loves to gap key levels. So previous month low, we gapped it. We traded down to liquidity. Right, so we do have that previous month low that we could see potentially retested in the 234, 235 area. See if that wants to hold as a resistance level since it's not support anymore, and then see if price wants to trade down through there. So totally possible that we see that. We'd also be trading into this gap, into this daily gap, into the volume imbalance, into the daily fair value gap that rests in between these three candles. So a lot of stuff going on in that area. Let's also see if we could slap up our moving averages and see what also happens to be in this general vicinity is we have our moving averages. So we're at the 200. Do we find support? Let's grab our path tool and take a look at what that might look like. Okay, do we find support here? Do we rally up somewhere into this area, sell down here? That's a very, very likely scenario, right? Unless we just straight gap this 200 period and fall, which is possible as well. Then we're looking for this 200 to support. Might even find a gap up above previous day high to open up the week, rally up into Tuesday or Wednesday into this these downward facing or downward moving averages 20 and 50, right, and then see a bigger sell down. I think it'd be too obvious for it to just continue to keep dropping, but you never know. But I do look for the opportunity for some bearers to get trapped here if they haven't exited, right, who are looking for this move down below. But at 200, 200 SMA or this is a volume weighted moving average, most likely to offer support, especially because of how we hit it to the wick. Traded right above it, found a little bit of support. So likely to see that move higher again, where into this daily gap, into the fair value gap, into the volume imbalance between this wick and this wick, right? Somewhere up there. It could even be less. It could even be inside of this fair value gap here from this wick to this wick, right? Maybe it's a shallow bounce. We don't actually trade all the way back up to the previous month low, which would now offer resistance, and then trade down, right? So definitely possible. We'll see how rapidly this moving average starts falling. I'm really looking for that moving average to be the confluence with the smart money concepts of where we're going to find that rejection level before we sell off even further. We also could just chop around as we wait for that moving average to catch up. That wouldn't be unlikely either. But I am looking for some kind of bounce, some kind of support, rally up, whether that's small or big. Definitely not looking for price to come back up to test the previous week high or that 260, 265, 260, 270 range. Not looking for that at all. Highest I would give us is this previous week low here of 250 if we really got rallying. Possibly seeing something like that where we'd overshoot the moving averages just a little bit. It'd be an ultimate, bull trap, fake out, and then rip price back down. So we'll be looking to see how or if any of those scenarios play out. But as we drop into different time frames, let's go ahead and look at the 4-hour chart, see if that tells us anything differently. So on the 4-hour chart, we do see we have a small. It's not, I wouldn't say there's a lot of confirmation in this yet because we barely took it, but that is a swing change of character, bearish change of character. And so we will be watching this. Oftentimes you see that change of character happen first, then you see a rebound, then you see price trade back down. So we'll be watching that. This was not a very definitive change of character. A lot of times you want to see price rapidly deliver through that. In a bearish situation, you want to see it be a breakdown. In a bullish, you want to see it be a breakout, right? You want to see a nice candle that confirms that, then that back test, and then continuation of the move in that direction. So this is not a very, I'm not very sold on this yet. If this is going to hold, I do want to see, something that gives a better look that says, yeah, price is trading down, then we're going to rally, and then we're going to trade down lower. So I'll be watching this, but not incredibly sold on it yet. We do have a 4-hour bearish fair value gap here, right? But that's above that previous month low. So not necessarily looking for that to be taken out right now, but we could get back up there. Again, let's slap out some moving averages on the 4-hour time frame. We do have a lot kind of going on in that same area. We're going to see this 20 period rapidly declining since price came down so quickly. So we're going to see that come down. We're going to see probably price trade back over that. Again, maybe back up to this 235. We could see price come all the way back there. I mean, it's not off the table. If we saw something like this, right, that could be a likely scenario. Back up into that 250 range. We do know there's a lot of support there. Let's look at our fixed range volume profile for this entire period here. So we do see there's also a volume point of control node. That is within that general vicinity 2 and 252.84. So we'll go ahead and label that on our chart. Volume, So labeling that line here is volume point of control, volume node point of control. Okay, so we'll delete that. And so we'll look, if price got back up there again, we would be setting new kind of equal lows or relative equal lows, but we could see that the 20 period falls down here, catches us for a little bit of relief, right? We would break structure here in this peak or in this candle wick, right? We'd break above. We could potentially then come back down and test, and then run back up. As we know, these are magnetic, right? But even if this move happened, I would be expecting continued downside just because we still have this daily fair value gap here that's very close. And so what would that look like? Again, probably something like this, right? Trading back up. Okay. And then like that. So if we did trade up to that 250 range, isn't off the table. If buyers step in, we're looking for something like this, where if it did happen, you'd see us trade back into that. Then you'd see a bearish change of character, right? You'd see it test back through, probably a fair value gap in here, trading back down into that daily fair value gap. From there, I would expect there could potentially be some lots of bullish reactions in that 190 area, that 200 psychological level, right? We have fair value gaps here on the 4-hour time frame, the 1 day time frame. Not sure we get all the way back down to this order block. I think this fair value gap would be enough to give us a nice rally back up into the 280s, maybe even enough rally to get us back up to 300. We'll see. But I do think we could get back up into this order block here. here or an order block that sits inside of this structure here. If we were to get down to this level, it'd be enough to give us a nice push, maybe back up to the upside for some. We'll chop around some more, ultimately waiting on macroeconomics to give us some kind of indication that either the economy is recovering or the economy is continuing to go down the toilet, and we're going to see a bigger recession. And at that point, I would expect some selling down maybe into the 160, 150 area. So we'll just be watching for those things. But those are neither here nor there, right? We're really just looking at what's going to potentially happen next week. And we could see price have some kind of balance and some kind of relief after so much selling coming from that FOMC meeting, now earnings, right? As we could just continue to sell down. So let's drop into lower time frame charts. We are looking at the 1 hour, right? Just further confirmation. On the 1 hour, you got that moving average starting to catch up, right? So on the 1 hour, could we see, right? We have a peak here. It's a micro, but could we see that moving average come underneath price and cause price to run up to the 50 or up to the 200, right? Potentially both, and it would look something like that, right? We would see the 20 period come under, it would catch price, right? The 50 would come down, price would go over, they would both catch, the 20 would cross the 50, they'd catch us here, and they'd drive us up into a falling 200, right? Falling 200 maybe be here, maybe be up at that volume, maybe be a little bit of a false breakout over the 200, and then, again, I do expect that to be sold off into. There is an order block in here, right around that volume point of control, right? It almost identically, the low of the order block would be in that volume node point of control. So again, if we got rally in 250, might be all she wrote, right? That might be your opportunity if you are still holding longs to look to exit some of those positions, or be averaging in right now if you're buying shares and be looking to take some of that profit back off the table at 250, because we do think price is coming down to 200. Right, we do think that price is likely to come down here. It would be unlikely that price, just fell right here back down to equal lows. Only took a little bit of liquidity there where we already had an equal low right here. Barely just touched it. Now it's coming down to this fair value gap. Pretty good chance that we see 200 again at least, maybe 190. There I do expect some more serious buying pressure. So we'll see, again, early on in the week, do we see that moving average kind of play out and give us some support? But again, 1 hour chart, we got the fair value gap up here at 261. I don't think we're getting there. We got to pass this peak here. We got to close this gap here. There's a lot of other stuff on the table before we can even consider that right now. Let's look at the 15-minute chart again, smaller time frame. Right, same kind of deal going on. We got our previous day high, we got our previous day low. Kind of inside this range, looking for a breakdown or a breakout, right? This is Friday's range. High, low, breakdown, right? Head to further sell side liquidity. Breakout, where are we headed? Gap fill, previous month low, okay? Previous week high, our volume node point of control. I don't need to label these gaps here. They're very clear. They're pretty obvious to see. But we do start to see on the 15-minute chart that we've got the 20 period move down. So, and we got a rapidly falling 50. So do we see price pull above as the moving averages pull back up, right? Come back and test the moving averages, run a test on the 20. That would give us kind of the look that we talked about right here on the higher time frame chart, but we'd be crossing then over the 200 period. And we're talking this is going to go, tomorrow's the 23rd. And so we're going to be trading all the way up to the 27th. So this could take the entire week for this to play out if we start getting even the least bit of bullish activity. Okay, and so do we again trade up here, cross over the 200, right? Find support, maybe come back and back test that 200 and see if it drives us up into that 250 range. We're talking 2 to 3 weeks probably before we really see that full move play out, right? Because maybe we get some bullish activity, but I mean, maybe we even get just, what appears to be a bounce. We come back down, we run the stop on we run at the stop losses, and then we start to see our bigger move happen, right? So we could burn some time off the clock next week before we send price back up into that 240s, 250s, right? 230, 235, testing this previous month low. Nothing says it's going to happen right away, right? That was a big sell-off, so face rip and rally. It could happen. Tesla has done it plenty of times before. We get just a nice V-shaped recovery and down, back up, right? But we also could burn time off the clock. If there's a lot of long positions still in the market, a lot of long options, they want to burn them. We could see price start to rally, run on stops, and then start to rally from there. And nothing says it has to rally. I mean, maybe it's just a really weak correction. Maybe it looks something like, run on stops, just barely up, and then we dump back down. There's other companies that are reporting earnings this week. Seasonality suggests we do start to see some positive moves to the upside end of October through November and December. So we'll just have to see if seasonality plays out or not. But the market looks very weak. But there is a lot of bearishness in the market now too, and that's sometimes when you want to be greedy, is when the market's fearful. And right now with last week's moves, it seems like a lot of liquidity has been cleared up. So it could be a really good week to scalp some long positions. Let's drop down into the 5-minute chart. Have a little, very, very weak structure. There's so little structure to this, but we'll go ahead and mark a couple things off, and that's this high here. Okay, that's going to be internal liquidity. So internal buy-side liquidity. All right, so if we see us break this, we are going to look for price to rapidly deliver, potentially through this, give us a change of character on a micro time frame, like a fractal change of character. Come back and kind of test it, right? Is there a fair value gap in there? Possibly. Come back and test it, drive price up. On the 5-minute chart, right, we do have our moving averages finally have caught up. We also have this rapidly declining 200 period. So we now have this move, right? So if we see this break quickly on Monday, we could expect potentially a back test and then for price to drive higher. Right? So that's one scenario. We'll be watching the moving averages on that. Another scenario is we come up, right? We test, but we don't take these higher peaks here, and then we come back down and dump onto running on stops, take the sell side again, and then run higher from there. Maybe even just to rip your face off kind of deal. So we'll be watching that as well. 5-minute time frame, right? But we have this small range of previous day low, and then this peak here. So we can really say if we break out here, we're likely to head here. We're likely to head here. We're likely to head here. Then we're looking at our volume imbalance gaps there and there, right? So here's your levels. 215 break, 218, 74 break, 221 break, 222, 43 break, up to 230, 51, up to 242, 38, up to 252, 85. And in between there, you got previous month low at 235.55, and you got your previous week low at 250, right? Not expecting this massive rally. These are your levels. We break one, we go to the next. We break one, we go to the next, right? Same thing on the sell side, but we just have much less structure on the sell side because we just took all of the sell side liquidity, right? There is virtually no structure here. Let's drop off these moving averages so we can see a little bit better. Okay, we have equal lows here. We have internal liquidity there. Okay, our current price is here, so we've taken this liquidity here. We have a small fair value gap here, which you can see is right around our liquidity level. So we're not going to mark anything off there. There is a volume imbalance here inside that daily or that 5-minute fair value gap, which I think was also a daily gap, one of many. And so you can see there's targets on the downside too. So if we go back to current price, we look at what our likelihood of if we start heading down is, right? We break that 210.47. We head down to 209.70. We head down to 206.80. From there, we head to the psychological level of 200. Then we got 198.61, and then we're inside that fair value gap. And so that's a nice big range. We will find support somewhere. We also have what appears to be an internal order block inside of a daily fair value gap. So that's confluence, right? And that's in the 296 area. So if we start heading down, we start breaking some of these levels, we head down to 296, and we can head all the way down through the daily fair value gap. So there's your targets. Hopefully this has been helpful. We do have a lot going on with Tesla. We have a lot going on in the market. Wish you guys luck with this week's trading, and we'll see what happens. Look forward to seeing you on the next one. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe and share with all your friends. Thanks for joining me.